You will need to have your syllabus in front of you. You might want to print that out so you can follow along with me. So here we're going to just talk about the course in just general terms, what's expected of you, what we're going to cover, things of that nature. Well, as far as what is expected of you generally, you'll be doing short written assignments for each module. 6 of the modules will have 2 of them, and 2 of the modules will have 1 each, for a total of 14. And you can see the point value listed on the Moodle site for those. There'll be a link for you to click on to make it pretty easy for you to submit your written assignments. And there'll be a time limit on those, so you'll be given a date by which you should have them turned in. Also, for each module there's going to be some readings to do and some videos to watch, including whatever sort of instructional videos that I'll be doing. There's also some others like documentaries and so forth that I found for you, and I expect you to go through those. You do have a textbook, Living Religions. It's quite good. Each unit will have at least 1 chapter. Sometimes you'll have maybe just a little part of a chapter to read for certain units. We also have the book The Tao of Pooh, which is a nice little treatment of the basic principles of Taoism as told through Winnie the Pooh stories. It's a nice little piece of work, and you'll read that for Taoism. And then finally there's a book entitled Buddha, which is a biography of the Buddha, and you'll be reading a couple of chapters out of that book for the Buddhism unit. You have my contact information there. Certainly you can email me anytime you need to. My office phone is listed there for you as well. Course outcomes. Here I'm looking at the course syllabus. You'll be able to demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of the academic approach to religion by describing the anthropological approach to the study of religion. Well, that tells you that the basic tone of this course is going to be academic, critical, culture relative. In other words, we will study religions in their cultural context, not with the intent of doing a normative comparison of religions, but rather just to discover the religions themselves, primarily to try to grasp a religion from the insider's point of view. Second course outcome, describe and explain the differences between the major world religions in regard to important beliefs, scriptures, and geographical location. So this tells you a lot of what we'll be looking at. Of course, the beliefs and dogmas and principles of all the religions. Also a bit about their scriptures, and a bit about the geography and demography. Demography, of course, meaning how many people in the religion, where you find them, so forth. The third outcome, analyze and assess the academic worthiness of written text on one of the world's great religions and put these ideas into written form. This refers to the book report that you will do. There's a list I'll provide for you, and you will choose 1 book off of that list to read and write a report on. A little bit more about that later. And then finally, the 4th course outcome, critically assess the traditional ideology of a religion and the academic ideology of a religion and compare the 2. Often, if you read a believer's perspective on a religion, or a so-called traditional perspective, the historical information will be quite different than what we find from an academic treatment of, for example, the history of a religion. And that will come up many times in the course, and I'll point out the disparity between the so-called traditional believers' understanding of religion and the academic understanding of religion, particularly as it has to do with history, since history is verifiable and can be documented and so forth. So I'll point that out as we move through the various religions. I'm kind of following the syllabus here. You'll have 1 midterm exam, and that will occur after Module 4, and then you'll have a final exam at the end of the course. Of course, both of these will be take-home exams. As far as the grading scale, just consult either the syllabus or the information online. Your grades are going to be calculated from both the midterm and the final, your book report, plus all your 14 assignments. So I'm not mistaken, it comes up to be 980 total points, and the grading scale is 90 to 100 is A, 80 to 89 is a B, 70 to 79 C, 60 to 69 D, Anything below a 60 will be an F. And I've broken down the points for you and calculated it for you, both online and on the syllabus here. I did mention a book report. That is an important part of your grade. I would advise you to go on and choose your book. You don't really have to have it approved by me or anything, because the list is approved itself. So just pick anything off the list. And I appreciate I would prefer that you stick with the list itself, because I've been teaching this course for some time, and I found these books to work best for this course. And you have quite a few to choose from. So please consult the list. Choose one as early as you can, and make sure that you start reading it. And please note the due date of the report. It'll be a couple of weeks before the semester's over. But I wouldn't wait too long to get started on that. And basically, and there's more information obviously on the syllabus about the book report, but generally speaking, Part 1, summary, Part 2, critique. So in Part 1, you simply tell me what the book was about, and Part 2, I would like you to critique the book. What did you think about it? How well did the author do what they said they were going to do? How does it compare maybe with other treatments of the subject, and so forth. So Part 2 would simply be critique. This is not a research paper, so really no references cited page is necessary, no bibliography is necessary unless you would want to quote some other work, but simply just a book report. As far as the actual topics, we'll begin the course with, as it says here, Module 1, Anthropology of Religion and Overview, and there we'll be touching on things such as important terms that are important just for the discussion of religion: monotheism, polytheism, materialism, deism, naturalism, things of that nature, atheism, so forth. Then we'll move on to 3 significant anthropological observations regarding religion. Anthropology has had a lot to contribute as a discipline to the study of religion, and so I think that it would be well worth our time to spend just a little bit of time discussing some of these significant observations regarding religion that anthropologists have made. And in order, they are number 1, religions are culture relative, which just has to do with the cultural specificity of religions. Number 2, matters of faith and dogma cannot be empirically substantiated, which just means when you talk about matters of faith and matters of dogma and belief, we're talking about different things than the basic principles and laws of science, for example, or the basic information we have about the world we live in. Okay, since religion involves ideas and thoughts and ideologies regarding a transcendental realm. Transcendental meaning not part of this worldly realm we live in. So clearly, when you make statements regarding the transcendent, there's going to be some issues, and one is that many of these claims cannot be empirically substantiated, which doesn't mean they're false. It just means it's sort of claims of a different nature than the sort of claims we generally make about the world. And then the third significant anthropological observation is that religions generally do not tend to spread outside their area of origin. And that is actually true of basically every religion that we know about, except 4. There are 4 that actually don't follow this basic principle, and we'll discuss these exceptions when we get to it. And then after this, and then of course we'll talk a little bit about the great religions themselves, where they're at, the size of them, things of that nature, a little bit about the history of each one. And so that's Module 1, just basic introduction. Module 2, with Module 2, I should say, we will then move into our unit-by-unit treatment of the major world religions. We'll begin with Hinduism, because we're going to start in the East. There is a sort of a logic with the way we're covering the religions. We're going to start with Eastern religions, with Hinduism being arguably the oldest of the great religions, the greater world religions. Some say it dates back about 4,000 years, depending on how you actually mark its origination. And then after Hinduism, we will move into Buddhism. Buddhism is to Hinduism as Protestantism is to Catholicism. In other words, Buddhism is a sort of a reactionary response to Hinduism. The Buddha came along and made some changes, so to speak, and we'll discuss that in the context of our discussion of Buddhism. And then that naturally leads to a discussion of Module 4, the third major religion, which is Jainism. Jainism is a sister religion to Buddhism. In fact, the founder of Jainism, Nadaputa-Vardhamana, also known as Mahavira, was actually alive at the same time as the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. And the religions are quite similar in regard to their principles and practices and so forth. Jainism is noteworthy because the doctrine of ahimsa, A-H-I-M-S-A, the doctrine of nonviolence, actually comes to us from Jainism. And of course, as most of you know, lots of very prominent individuals from the Dalai Lama, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and many others have embraced the doctrine of nonviolence, which actually originated with Jainism. Okay, after Module 4, we will then have the midterm, and then we will pick it up with Module 5, which is Taoism. And there we'll discuss the Tao of Pooh, read and discuss the Tao of Pooh, and talk a little bit about Taoism. And then we will move into the Western religions. And we will be primarily focusing on the so-called Big Three Western monotheisms. The three religions recognized as being monotheistic in general terms: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And of course the logic there is historical and cultural. Judaism is the oldest Western monotheistic religion, at least of the great world religions. And then both Christianity and Islam sort of piggyback in a kind of way on Judaism, because of course Abraham is thought to be the sort of the beginning point of Judaism. He was called out by God. A covenant was made with Abraham. He was called out of Ur, eventually ended up in Palestine, and so forth. Anyway, so Judaism sort of dates back to Abraham, and of course Abraham had two sons, one Isaac, the other Ishmael. Through Isaac we get what would properly come to be known as Judaism. And then, of course, Christianity piggybacks on Judaism by virtue of the fact that Jesus was Jewish. And in fact, about 85% of the Holy Bible is Jewish. It's the Jewish scriptures. Christians call it the Old Testament. Jews refer to it as the Tanakh. T-A-N-A-K-H. T-A-N-A-K-H. The Tanakh. And that's the proper name for the Jewish scriptures, which Christians call the Old Testament. Anyway, anyone who knows very much about Christianity will know that basically you can't understand Christianity without Judaism, since it obviously piggybacks on Judaism. And then on the other side, through Ishmael, who is the son of Abraham as well, we get Islam. And so Islam and Christianity and Judaism all worship the God of Abraham. And so there's your connection there between those three religions. Anyway, so we'll be doing those in turn. Judaism first, then Christianity, then Islam. Under Judaism, we're going to do a brief discussion of a religion called Zoroastrianism, which is a pretty fascinating religion, which was thought to have influenced Judaism quite heavily. And then finally, before I leave you here, take a look at the symbols on your syllabus. You'll see that there are 8 symbols on the top of your syllabus, and we'll start at the top left-hand corner. That is the symbol for Hinduism. This one here is the symbol for Hinduism, and basically it is the Om sound written in Sanskrit. S-A-N-S-K-R-I-T. Sanskrit, the sacred language of Hinduism. So it's the Om sound, which Hindus claim is the sound of creation. Om. Some people write that A-U-M. Some people write it O-M-M-M-M. Doesn't really matter, but it is the Om sound. And so that's the international symbol for Hinduism. Next, I hope you recognize the star and crescent of Islam, the internationally recognized symbol of Islam. Virtually every Islamic country has that on its flag somewhere. Next, third from the left, you see what looks like a candle holder, and it is. In Judaism, we refer to it as the menorah, M-E-N-O-R-A-H, the menorah. So that's the internationally recognized symbol for Judaism. The Star of David is more recent. What you see here, the menorah, is much more ancient, so I prefer to use that one as the symbol for Judaism. Next, you see something that looks like a little wheel, and actually, if you look close, it's a lotus flower, and it's got like 8 petals, or if you look at it as a wheel, it's like 8 spokes. And that is a symbol for Buddhism, and it represents the eightfold path of the Buddha. The eightfold path of the Buddha. The eightfold path meaning right thinking, right conduct, right speech, things of that nature. Okay, so the internationally recognized symbol for Buddhism. Next, you see the cross, and obviously that represents Christianity. I do like to put it on the syllabus, though, because just to remind people that in Catholicism, of course, you wouldn't really see this. You would actually see a crucifix. And I guess all Protestants know this. If you don't, well, you just found out. This is what you would see, generally speaking, in a Protestant house of worship. But in Catholicism, you actually see a crucifix with the crucified Christ on it, which just shows you there's a slight difference in theological interpretation between Catholics and Protestants. Of course, they all, accept the crucifixion and resurrection of Christ. It's just that the sort of emphasis is placed in slightly different areas for Catholicism and Protestantism. Anyway, so that's for Christianity. Next, we have the yin and yang symbol. That's actually 2 different words. You can write it Y-I-N/YANG if you'd like, the yin yang symbol, but either way, it is 2 different words. The yin is represented by the dark part, and the yang is represented by the light part. So the yin-yang symbol, and of course this is the international symbol for Taoism. Next, you see, I just noticed I'm holding up a slightly older version of the syllabus, so you don't see the last symbol over here. Sorry about that. Anyway, this symbol here, the little hand, is basically the international symbol for Jainism. And in the palm is inscribed ahimsa in Sanskrit. So if you look really close, you can see there's something inscribed right in the palm, right about here. It's ahimsa, A-H-I-M-S-A, in Sanskrit. And of course, ahimsa, the doctrine of nonviolence. The hand itself means something like, slow down, be patient, wait, don't be rash, be friendly, be compassionate. All those sorts of things are actually illustrated by the hand. And then finally, this is a slightly older version of the syllabus, and I don't have that last symbol over here to the right of the symbol for Jainism, but that sort of eagle-looking kind of bird thing, that's the symbol for Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism. Z-O-R-O-A-S-T-R-I-A-N-I-S-M. Zoroastrianism, which is also a great world religion, but one that many people have not heard of. And actually, it has a very ancient pedigree. We really don't know how old it is, but we do know that both Judaism and Hinduism were influenced by Zoroastrianism. In fact, many of the sort of basic core ideas of Judaism, for example, the idea of Satan, the idea of the afterlife, the soul, things of that nature, all came from Zoroastrianism. And we're going to discuss that a little bit more as we move through the semester.